I'm Bruder, and I have the good fortune of having been the design architect for the Billings Public Library.
What was your general concept for the space outside the library?
My general concept of the building, when I came and talked to the community and listened to what you liked and what was important to you, they loved the rimrock that wraps the community. This rimrock that we see out the windows here that defines the transition of the prairie to the plateau to the mountains. And you're right, it's a city right on that edge. And so my first thing that I knew would have to happen is that the library had to become a pavilion of light, of daylight, a beacon at night as it glows, a magnet for people to know what it was all about. So proud, you drive by this building at night, and I wanted a building that you could look up and say, gee, I wonder what that is. No, that's our library.
How is the design from the outside continued inside?
The goal was to make it seamless, because when you design a building, you have what's called the building program. And we had probably a dozen or more meetings with everything from homeschoolers to teenagers to the homeless population to business people. And we listened to all those things. So a building is a combination of, you design a building from the inside out, but equally the outside in. And when it's really working and it's really architecture, there's just this seamless blending and everything informs everybody. And this building looks like it's warm in winter, and it looks like it's shady and cool in a hot summer day. And so that's really doing architecture that has this inside-outside transparency. Anyways, is the fact that the angle of the rim rocks when you're looking up Main Street is sloped just like the roof of the building. So the two are the same. It's like this building's part of those rocks, and yet it's not. It's just this sort of volume that's of the rocks. So.
What were some of the local materials you used in the design?
So when I started looking at materials, the rim rocks were important to me. And I came also with the agenda that the request was that I make this a very sustainable building. That we set our goals at the top, not the middle. So very shortly, this building will be a LEED Platinum building, which is the highest respect for the sustainable architecture of our time that we can have. So I had to think about being a very well-insulated, well-oriented building. So we have very sophisticated systems of insulation and glass and fritz and shading, and that's what the perforated's all about. So it's taking, my philosophy is I like to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary. So the simplest material. So we have concrete block at the bottom, which is sort of a simple, basic material. We have stone from the rim rocks beyond. And when you look at our concrete blocks and our stone, the joints are handled just like the brick joints at the Dude Rancher Motel that I've stayed for the last 4 years whenever I come to visit. And that was really interesting to me, how the shadows on the clay of the mortar became special. So the building's filled with these sort of inventions of how do we think of things in a different way. Because a library architecture is this interesting art form, and I call it an art form. And I'm not always interested that people just like my buildings. I like it when they do, but that's not the important thing. And it's really interesting because being in a real piece of architecture, it's like when we see a great movie. We go to a great concert or dance performance. We see a great play, and we see this great acting performance. We leave that theater sometimes not always liking that play or what we saw, but somehow it takes us to another place that is beyond, that inspires us to see the world from a different point of view. So this mixing of ordinary things and capturing the light and the daily passage of the seasons. A building's an armature. It should speak of its time, and for a building to be timeless, which I was hoping it would become. And it sort of has that sense of pride now. After 2 years, it looks like it's brand new. It's very gratifying. And architecture is really special that way. So the materials became stainless steel scrim that shields the building from 80% of the direct sunlight and heat. Fritted glass that gives you this feeling that you're in a Japanese temple. This change up throughout the day that you can find quiet. And again, the building, one thing I really enjoy being here, again, I've been a few times since the building's opened, but it looks like it's brand new. I mean, between the librarians' stewardship and care, and your community is, I think, liking this place because you're really taking beautifully care of it. And to me, that gives me great satisfaction as the architect. It's really, really special.
The elliptical shape dominates throughout the building. What is its significance?
Okay, there we go. That's a good question. Well, when you drive up to the building, other than a few little hints that come from the landscape moves of the entry garden, which is the ellipse and the elliptical shape where the book drop is, but you don't really get, but it looks sort of like it could just be a shed, okay? It's like the long buildings along the railroad tracks that first came to town that were very functional. They were storage buildings. They just looked like farm buildings almost, right? So somebody could drive by from the outside and, you know, from that standpoint, it's, gee, what is that? Oh, that's our library, and there's enough little teases through the scrim in the glass day and night. And once you've been here, you know it's anything but ordinary, right? But my language is that I am not a classical architect. I do not need symmetry to be happy. And I find that in life, just like in nature, it's the asymmetry and the akimbo-ness of so many shapes in the natural environment, whether it be a flower, whether it be a pond on the edge of a stream. We see all these organic things. So what I like to do is mix up sort of the crisp edge modernism of this building with the playfulness of both shape and the eggs and the ellipses that become this softening element that sort of twists and turn you through the space and give you all these vistas to think about, and with the wild patterns of the shadows because of the strange way the building is in the pattern of the city, I knew I had a bunch of things to work with here. So I introduced everything from the connection between the top and the bottom. I wanted you to come in at the lower level and feel this sense of specialness and want to go upstairs because you knew it had to be cool. And you're looking up to the sky, and it almost looks like with this fretted texture on this FT, very futuristic skylight, you know, but it shades itself because of the skin on these air bubbles. And the light's coming in, and then you've got all the people circling around you on the amber fiberglass resin that are all the donors that made the building happen. So that's pretty cool. And then I thought it was really important in a cold place like Billings can be, and I know it's cold. When I first came here, it was like wind chill of like 38 below zero, right? And you've been there. You've been around this place. It takes your breath away, okay? But I thought it's always interesting to have moving water in a place that has a big winter and ice. And so that's where the idea of the reflecting pool at the entry that you move around as you move up the stair came from. So we got the sky, and we've got the water, and we've got the land in between. And so you have that wall backdrop again of the rim rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Very literal, but very beautiful. It glows. It forms this interesting transition behind the other curving wall that leads you into the children's section. So there's sort of this embrace of security between the water and the little log benches that wrap around the pool. It takes you back into the children's area. And then we've got the elliptical conical story tower. I just like color. And so as you look around, color takes this very neutral box, if you will, because we have a white ceiling made of this wonderful shredded wheat wood product recycled. We have all the silver glistening neutrality. We have all this sort of neutralness. We have carpets chosen that look like the farm fields across the plains when you look out the window in winter. So all these patterns are like the fields that you see when you fly over America. So the ground is the ground you see from an airplane. The sky is out on the edge. And then you mix that up with all these bright shapes and colors. And the two study rooms here in the teen area, those are about the size of original homesteader cabin, shack, or house that the first people that settled Billings lived in. When I looked at the tents and the little thing, that's about a house where somebody lived that was trying to conquer this land in a space just that size.
Oh.
Yeah, and then I twisted around a little bit, and I made one go this way and one go that way. And I figured, what a great place to study, to have this edge and make this little village here. And then we made this pattern. This is the same size as one of those. But when it doesn't have walls, it seems a lot bigger. So it's just, you know, it's about taking geometry and taking ideas of form and space and movement. And so you've talked about being in the theater. And it will be not only how you speak your words, but how you move your body around the stage that will be a lot to do with your aura, your success, your magic. And everybody should have the potential of being around architecture that lets you feel really good about yourself and go on journeys and not know where you're going to be when it's all done.
We do know that there's a time capsule coming to the library. What's it about, and what was your general idea for it?
Well, there's a long tradition of cornerstones in buildings, and when you start a building and build a building, leaving the memory of the time it was made. So the idea of a time capsule goes way back to probably the pyramids and all kinds of ancient things. And so as we were talking here, and we had real interest in what made the energy for this building. And so we talked about the idea of a capsule. And to your point of why are all these egg shapes and ellipses and all these soft forms here? Well, all of a sudden it was a no-brainer that we're going to three-dimensionally make our time capsule this orbital object that looks like the seed of all ideas that came from outer space, that floats on cables, so it magically floats. It's made of translucent red resin that complements this whole idea of color and energy, because just the vibrancy of that red on a cold winter's day when we come to the library to curl up with a book or sit at our computers or work the tech lab. And so we made this shape, and I designed it carefully, and I sculpted it with the fabricator. And I wanted this, it's not just a pure ellipse, it's an egg. So it's like going back to the origin of the egg, the chicken or the egg, right? And so it was like this egg shape, and it opens up because hopefully, maybe every 25 years, we have a celebration for a quarter century of the library, and we open it up, and the new people that are there that were there when we built the building can add to the capsule, because when it's first filled, it's only probably going to be half filled. So for the next 100 or 200 years, because this is a building that could last that long, we'll periodically celebrate and look back at the memories, and it'll be this event where we open it, and we put all these things, and look at those funny computers or those discs, and what was that, and all these things, and survey those things. And as we were looking for a place to put it, at one point we thought about suspending it in the big orb under the skylight. But as it became more apparent, the meaning of the Montana room, which was really like a big time capsule, okay? So in essence, it's a sort of an ironic twist of fate. We are putting this sealed time capsule floating above the open time capsule, which are the walls and the collections of the Montana room. And there's a lot of truth in finding out where you came from in that room called the Montana room. It's sort of like a real magnet of the energy that represents the traditional community room that's about the place and the history of the place. So that's how it came to be located there. And it's a playfulness and a energy that lets us levitate with the dreams that the Billings Public Library will give to the citizens that are here today, the citizens that have been born. And this will always be the point of pride in this community, in this region, in this country, for people to go on the journey of life and find new things. Lewis and Clark discovered the river and discovered the Pacific Ocean. Other people have gone to space, and who knows where we'll be going over time. What we discover at the medical campus just to the north of the building, what happens at the university that's just not far away, and what happens as we get on the train and still go east and west across America. Where will that journey take us?